Now we're going to hear from a panel of your peers who explore how various life experiences impact work of your team and what you can do to lead and motivate them to outcomes that you desire. Please welcome, we have Kristin Jennings, Director of Marketing, Climax Metal Products Company, a division of RBC, Jeff Cloud, Vice President, Marketing of IBT Industrial Solutions, and Ellen Holladay, Senior Vice President, Chief Information Officer of Motion Industries. Look forward to hearing their message. Thanks, guys.
Thank you for that introduction, Leroy. You know, we're in a really interesting time in history. For the very first time, we have 5 generations working together in the workforce, and that can present some real challenges because all of those generations, each and every one of them, have their own aspirations, desires, and goals. So the challenge is, what do you do to motivate that 62-year-old 40-year veteran in your company and still figure out a way to motivate that 22-year-old that you just hired from the community college fair last week? So in order to address this challenge, I wanted to kind of turn it over to Kristin and Jeff and ask you, what do you do to motivate your employees?
Well, so Ellen, my biggest challenge has actually been managing people who have had more experience and more success than I have. I can recognize that I bring new ideas and innovation to the table, but I'm learning that it's more and more important to learn about the history of which I wasn't a part in order to make more sound decisions. And to tell my employees, I respect where you came from, and I know you bring things to the table as well. Now, for my generation, and this is a little bit tricky, it's all about personal customization. So we really want freedom and flexibility. The catch here is there's also this inherent need for everything to be fair. So you kind of got yourself in a have your cake and eat it too conundrum.
You know, I've noticed that in the workplace too, Kristin, as I've managed younger employees. And I think it's really important that we offer them the flexibility they need and a degree of freedom. But at the end of the day, I think that the younger employees, as they gain their skills and they learn more about the organization, they become so valuable to the organization that they've got to realize that they're part of a bigger team, and everything they do impacts the success of that team. So I really think the more that you can kind of balance their personal needs with the company goals, the better off we'll be, because they really aren't there to do their own thing. They're there to help the team win and help the organization be successful.
Ellen, Kristin, I think those are all very good points in motivation. You know, I think motivation in general with all of the different generations within our organization is extremely difficult, yet necessary for us to be successful. You know, generational awareness is a very important component, but I think social styles is another component that is very important to take into account. Even within certain generations, we all react differently to different situations and have different motivational techniques that turn us on a little bit more than others. So I think by combining both the generational awareness of our employees, but also taking into account social style, is very important when selecting those motivational techniques. Besides motivating the different generations, I also feel strongly about the importance of collaboration. The sharing of ideas is a great way to uncover some fantastic new solutions. Also, technology has made it possible to pretty much work from anywhere in the world. With a virtual workforce, how are you ensuring collaboration continues to provide the best possible solutions for your organization and your customers?
Jeff, I think that is a really big challenge and a great question. Collaboration can sometimes be difficult even when you're in the same office. I think I've seen it work best when all the team members have a really high level of trust and they're confident in each other, that they're all working towards the same goals. They're not just looking out for themselves. And I think we set the example. The more that we collaborate with our peers, I think our employees will be encouraged to do the same thing. But we have to do it in the right way and in the right spirit. So, for instance, I think it's important that we never have our employees see that we're taking credit for a team success, and even worse, they can't ever see us place blame on an individual team member for something that went wrong with a project. So again, I think that it's all about mutual respect and trust, and I think as managers, we set the example for that.
Ellen, I couldn't agree more. In my organization, we use the term buy-in when discussing collaboration. You know, it's very easy for a manager to select a solution on his own in a vacuum, and try and implement that becomes very difficult when the individuals responsible for finishing the task were not involved in the engagement to decide what was the right course of action. You know, taking the ideas of many to be able to create a single solution can create greater results in really any problem within your organization. Not to mention, when you collaborate, the individuals who are responsible for actually achieving the task now have a sense of ownership and accountability, and it eliminates the opportunity for someone to back away from a solution that they weren't a part of.
I completely agree, Jeff, and when it comes to buy-in's crucial. You absolutely need to make sure that your information is available to everyone. And so one of the biggest things that we did was we implemented a cloud-based solution. This was really important because we had a workforce that had physical distance as well, which I know many of you do. By implementing that, we made communication more efficient internally, and then that also helped our customers, which is our end goal after all. Getting people to add the information into the system or getting them to transfer that knowledge, though, has been a really big challenge for me personally. And I'm assuming it's that way with everybody, as we're seeing 10,000 people per day retiring. And so I'm going to take this question back to the two of you and say, what are you doing to encourage the employees who are looking at retirement to pass that knowledge on before they leave?
You know, as it was mentioned earlier in the meeting as far as the age within our organization, I think we all are challenged with the exposure of the amount of retiring tenured employees that have decades of knowledge that cannot just be transferred with a simple meeting or a simple engagement. I think we all need to be very focused on a people plan, also referred to as a succession plan, identifying these individuals and the tasks that they are responsible for, and making sure and building a bridge for that knowledge to be able to be transferred as best as possible. You know, with Gen Y looking to be about 75% of the workforce in 2025, there's going to be a lot of knowledge that's going to be escaping, that's going to need to be captured one way or another. And one important component to that, I believe, is the Gen X that is going to be really moving into that next management role within a lot of our organizations, really help bridging that gap to prepare the millennials for when they're ready to step in.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think knowledge sharing can be a real problem if we don't approach it in the right way. And I think the first thing that we have to do is to never lose sight of the expertise and the contributions of older employees. They need to be valued for what they do. And I think I've seen most successful in trying to plan for succession in our company when somebody has that unique skill is to actively involve that person in the knowledge sharing process. Ask their advice about how we should share that knowledge with the next generation so that they can be just as successful as the previous generation. And I think another thing that I found to be really successful is to make sure that you involve your older employees in new things. You can't just push them away, and they're never going to share the knowledge that way. You have to involve them in new initiatives and new projects, and that way they're not really afraid to let go of the old because they still feel useful. So as managers, I think it's our job to always create an atmosphere where every employee can be valuable and contribute through the last day of employment.
Oh, that's so great. The employees with the most experience are invaluable to our organization, and I think my generation needs to start prioritizing listening first, or we're going to find ourselves in a situation where we have tons of technology and very little expertise. And that can be very dangerous. The leaders who are able to get all of the generations together to collaborate are going to find themselves in the most successful position. But from generation to generation, we need to realize this is about mutual trust and drive for the success of our industry. So we've spent about 10 minutes talking to each other about a few hot button issues, but the important part's going to come later when all of you will talk to each other at our roundtables and discuss these generational challenges and learn from each other. So please join us in our deeper dive following the next speaker, and thank you for listening.